Let's talk about longevity and vitality. Today's drive is all about tackling into this very little subject that I think is really taking the internet by storm. Everybody wants to live longer. We have people that spend literally $2 million a month doing all they can to live longer and diminish their biological age. And I think we need to really settle down a little because, well, we don't all have 2 million that we can spend every month on that, but also isn't necessary. And if you look at I don't remember the name of the gentleman that is doing that, so I will have to put it down in the notes, but I really thought what an incredible thing that he's doing, because it's actually working, but it's also something unobtainable, and most people are not most people, like 99.9% of the people cannot do that. Also, he lives for that. It's like his research. He's like the guinea pig of his research, and he has access to experts and technology, and this is why it's costing so much money. But it's a life, when you actually look at what he does, it's something incredibly, a little crazy if you ask me. But I appreciate what he's doing because it's showing that actually we have a lot of control over our life. But in terms of today's drive that I want to share with you is really the fundamentals of longevity and vitality. And there are two aspects to this. One, that longevity alone might not actually be something that is enough. We can all kind of survive longer now. Modern medicine has allowed us to stay alive longer. But without vitality, without the quality of life that comes from our health, then a long life can actually seem quite torturous to me. If I had to stay alive longer but be in poor health, I wouldn't want to be here. And I think a lot of people echo with that sentiment, because imagine not being able to think clearly or do things for yourself, or being bedridden, and just because you're breathing and observing and kind of being here in your body doesn't make that living. So I really want to marry the concept of longevity and vitality because they are one and the same to me. As a holistic practitioner, I always look at things this way. I'd never really isolate, unless it's in very rare cases, health methods and thoughts and concepts. For me, holistic is the way that we go forward because we are so multifaceted as beings. So when I saw Dan Buettner, actually, I discovered Dan Buettner in 2012. He was talking about his research with National Geographic, the Blue Zones. You probably heard about it by now because they also made a Netflix documentary about the 6th Blue Zone, Singapore. But when he came out with that and he did this research, he found that there were 5 places in the world: Japan, Okinawa, Sardinia in Italy, Crete in Greece, Costa Rica, and then a small place, Loma Linda in California, where the 7 Days Adventists are, where they have the majority of centenarians, and not one random person, but actually a group of people that grow all together and live into their hundreds. And the fascinating thing is that although maybe we can look at their fragility, because some of them are quite fragile and small, not muscly and strong, but they are healthy and they live a long, productive life. And so he started studying why this is happening. And one of the things that he found is obviously food is very important, and they all really eat a plant-based diet. Now, plant-based, not solely plants, but predominantly plants. So lots of fiber, and even if it's not a lot of vegetables, like in Costa Rica, there is a lot of animal products, but they also have a lot of beans. They found that these things really support their well-being and health long-term. So the fiber has got something to do with it. But it wasn't just the food, it was the faith that they had shared. So they had this belief in a higher power, which sadly a lot of people are losing, and I think we really need to go back to. And I'm not talking about religion. I always would point this out. Religion is not something I follow, believe in, because it's very manipulated by humans, and that always goes wrong. But spirituality as a concept, as a philosophy, as a feeling, as a lifestyle, actually, I really think it's got a lot of value, like knowing that there is this higher power, but also knowing that we are part of the higher power. So when we respect the fact that there is this big higher power, we actually respect ourselves more, and this is actually reflected a lot in how we look after our body, for example. And then there is community, so doing things together together with people you love, not being alone, having that sense of connection with the people that are around you. And family is part of that too, but a lot of us don't have that available. And so finding people that you connect with, finding that community is incredibly valuable for longevity. Then of course movement, right? Moving your body, and this is playing a lot in vitality as well. So we can see how these kind of topics come up all over again when we talk about longevity, but also vitality, so living a purposeful long life and having purpose. That was one thing that in the Blue Zone definitely shines, and is like, what do you do every day that gives you that sense of belonging and purpose and achieving and helping and supporting and so on. So when we look into those thoughts and lifestyle of different places, it really does, it's a testament that as humans we have so much more control than the medical system gives us credit for, but also that we give ourselves credit for. Like sometimes we forget how powerful we truly are. So I wanted to bring this forth because to me we need to start looking at longevity and vitality as one thing, and really thinking about how can we live longer, but if we live longer, how can we live better? Because being here for a long time, but being in poor health, as I said at the beginning, is really not something that I would wish on anybody. You become dependent on other people, you lose yourself, especially us women. This is something I want to really, really hammer down once again. Women have a higher chance of getting cognitive decline through Alzheimer's because of declining hormones like estrogen. So we need to start looking after our hormonal health way before we get into these moments of, oh, I forgot that my keys were here kind of thing. We have to start really thinking about our brain a lot more in advance, and that really comes with hormonal health. Everything is connected. We can't just disconnect one thing from the other just because our medical system is so decimated in different places. We have to really bring it all together as naturopathic doctors used to do. That's how I learned. That's how I want to really go for it. So on that note, I want to also talk about brain health being something that we need to start looking at when we're younger. Now, I am not a good example of that because I unfortunately had eating disorders since I was a teenager. In fact, at 17 I became anorexic, and then in my 20s I was up and down with fat diets and binging and purging and restricting and overdoing it. I mean, you name it, I did it. And I developed also this body dysmorphia that has been really living with me since I was a child, because I grew up with a mother that was equally dysmorphic but also had a bulimia, and so I learned these very difficult relationship with food, this very difficult relationship with food from a young age, and I had to really deconstruct it. And only now in my 40s do I not only have a good relationship with my body, and I try to not fall into patterns, and I have to remind myself that all the time, not perfect here, but I also love how I appreciate how, my cycle and my hormones, like how important they are and how I want to look after them. So I really, really, really harp on that one because it's so important. So having said that, I feel like we need to really think about our nutrition since we are young. So if you have teenage daughters, brothers, sisters, like really try to speak to them about this concept of nourishing your body. I am not talking about macro counting, so nothing to do with how much carbohydrates, fats, and protein you're getting, because quite honestly, we are very rarely deficient of anything other than fiber and micronutrients in our life. But also, I don't want people to get obsessed. Like if you get enough food, you're getting enough of everything else. But I want to really start thinking about the foods that serve our health in terms of giving us the micronutrients we need. Because our micros, so our vitamins and minerals, they are important for the wealth and health of our cells. And as Hippocrates used to say, we are what we eat, really, because our food should be our medicine. So let thy food be thy medicine. Like this guy didn't have any of the technology we have now. Not only did he understand that part, but he also understood that all the issues that we have with our health start in our gut. And he didn't know about the microbiome. He just knew intuitively that this was a truth. And he saw it, he observed. And that's because what we eat becomes our cells. So I want us to focus on the quality of food that we have every single with the thought that everything we put in our body eventually will become ourselves. It will speak to our DNA, and the quality of our cells depends on what we eat. So when you're eating a food, it's not about being on a diet, it's not about restricting, it's not about calories. In fact, forget about the bloody calories. That's like such an... We have proven that calories are not a good measuring standard at all for health and wealth and of health and for even weight loss. Yes, it will work in a certain way, in a certain amount, at a certain level, but not nearly what is really needed when we talk about actual being healthy and slim long term. It's about balancing what our body needs so that we can work and function properly. So what our hormones need, how we eat, how we pair together, our fiber, like you name it. So I want you to think about that today. When you have your meal in front of you, think about, what am I putting in my body? Are there lots of fibers? There's good fiber in here, there's good vitamins, there's good antioxidants, polyphenols. Am I getting everything that my microbiome needs? And by that I mean really plants, right? Plants. Now, I want to have a caveat here because I do work with a lot of women, and we seem to have the most sensitive digestive systems actually, and maybe it's connected to hormones, and it is because as we get older and we lose estrogen, that will affect our estrogen levels and how we cleanse the body, you name it. Our liver is important for detoxifying, and as we get older we can get sluggish if we haven't looked after ourselves, and also using a lot of products that perhaps are a little bit questionable. But I want to talk about the fact that some women that have digestive issues, and even men, if you have digestive issues, fiber can be challenging, and therefore an elimination diet can be something to look into. And that an example of that would be the FODMAP. In those cases, work with a professional, because you want to really step by step with the patients that you need to make it work, to heal the gut. It's a long process, but it's also a beautiful one too that will teach us a lot. And I really want to harp this on, because I feel like the reason why we have extreme diets like the carnivore diet that is promoted as this longevity vitality diet, which is not, we don't even have, like, there's no proof for it, but also, like, logically speaking, when we have the research that shows how important fiber is and polyphenols and so on, like, that doesn't even make sense. And don't get me started about the fact that the carnivores eating like sticks of butter and dairy when a lion, and calling it a lion diet when a lion doesn't have dairy. I don't even want to. But anyway, so I really want us to know that those fads out there that became, amazing diets are just elimination diets. So don't do anything dangerous and stupid for your body long term. Think about longevity. When you are in your 70s, especially as women, even in our 50s, I don't want you to look back and regret having made choices because we see things on Instagram. Like, we have to look at science, we have to look at proper studies, and we have to observe how our bodies are reacting. It's not just because something works for me that I can share with you. I am happy, and so I'm gonna do even more. Like, I'm happy to share what I personally eat, what I personally do, but I am me, and my body, I've learned what my body wants and doesn't want, how it works and doesn't work. This doesn't apply to everyone, it doesn't apply to the next woman that perhaps has a different issue to mine, and they will struggle. There are some basic concepts that apply to every single person here, and that's amazing, especially when it comes to cleanses. I'm so happy that, like, there's one fit all approach, because, like, okay, our systems are the same, we're going to cleanse them, but then when we've done the cleanse, we have to start integrating different things that work for people specifically, and that changes all the time, and that's what makes this job so complicated, and why sometimes I honestly just want to do public speaking and sharing information and not actually do one-to-one coaching, because it can be really tough. It's a long process, and the truth is people don't have a lot of patience. So anyway, this is what I want to leave you with. Look after yourself, think about longevity and vitality, and stay healthy by making smart choices.